So welcome to this session. This is about Notion, exploring Notion. You're here presumably because you saw one of the posts on Wonder Tools. I actually didn't tweet about it this time. I wanted this to just be a group of us who have hopefully seen at least one of these posts on Wonder Tools. And I'm going to basically do 4 things today, or at least that's the agenda I have in mind. Welcome and poll, we've done that. I'm going to dive right in and demo some stuff. I'm going to build a little bit on Notion. And as I mentioned to those who are here a bit earlier, you can build along with me. So you can go to notion.so, start from complete scratch if you don't have an account, or if you have an account but you haven't used it. And I encourage you just to build a mess page, as I wrote up in that post. Just create some mess. Don't worry about what you're going to use it for. It's just to get to know it. So we'll demo in Sandbox. I'll show you some different features. Then I'll show some examples. I may show some examples along the way as well, since that's something that a lot of people are interested in and inspiration. And then we'll have a discussion and talk about what to use it for, hopefully share some ideas along the way. So yeah, thanks everyone for introducing yourselves. That's great. I think it's nice for us to just know who else is in the room. If you have questions, put them in the chat, or feel free to just unmute. That's totally great too. And that way other people can hear the question and see the question, and you can phrase it in your own way. So whatever you prefer, I do not mind at all being interrupted. In fact, that'll be helpful to have some engagement. So I'm going to share, and if at any point there's a logistical problem, you can't hear me, you can't see the screen, just feel free to shout, because obviously in these sessions, sometimes it's hard to tell that. So I'm on a second monitor. If you see my eyes looking up, that's why, just so I can see the Zoom and the other material. And you should now see my screen. And this is the Notion page I just started building, just kind of got some stuff ready, like in those cooking shows where they make some of the stuff so that they don't have to do all of it in the live session. So I'm assuming you can see the screen, right? Somebody just give me a thumbs up or a nod, or yeah, okay, great. So this is just a Notion basics page, right? I'm creating this in Notion about Notion. So there's a little meta stuff going on here. And I just want to show you kind of what some basic editing tools that I'm using just to get us started. So I'm just going to put in some additional text. I included a list of keyboard shortcuts. I included sort of what I thought Notion is for, but let's actually add a section based on what people said they're interested in. So, and I'm going to talk you through what I'm doing just so you know the shortcuts I'm using and how I'm doing this, and I'll try to do it in a couple ways so you can see this. I'm pressing Command Option 1, and that gives me a heading 1. A large heading, there's heading 1, 2, and 3, right? Different size headings, and then there's normal text. So Command Option 1, I'm using a Mac, similar keyboard shortcuts on a PC, but slightly different adjuster keys. So that's one way to get heading 1. And this is going to be use cases for Notion. And now I'm going to style the text. Notice the text above here is styled with a yellow color, right? So I'm going to hit the / key, and now I get this menu of different kinds of blocks. And what I'm actually going to do is say turn into, and I want to turn it into, let's say heading 2. So now it's a little smaller, but actually I don't really like that. So I'm going to move it back to heading 1, or create a new heading 1. And I'm actually going to also color it. So I'm going to say color, and I want the background color to be a certain thing. In this case, yellow, just for consistency, right? And now I still don't like that sizing. So this time I'm going to select it, because now it's heading 2, and make it into heading 1. So you can see it's pretty easy to navigate around this kind of tool. And I'm also going to add a little emoji, just because, I don't know, I like the way emojis add a little flavor to the page. So for this one on a Mac, I'm going to hit Control, Command, Spacebar. That's actually one I didn't know a while ago, and I just learned relatively recently. It's a sort of system level emoji access for the Mac. And I'm just going to pick, I don't know, it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to pick this one. Actually, with the emojis, one thing that's kind of cool is that you can search them. So if you know you want something in particular, you can search that. But I'm just going to use that one. And now I can start typing and adding whatever other material I want, right? So I can do a numbered list. And if I just press 1, it's going to give me a kind of numbered list status. But I can always change that and turn it into something else. A couple of the other style types I like a lot are quote. And I use these not just for quotes. This is a nice larger style of information. So the first use case is just kind of creating a notes page on any topic. Let's call it a knowledge page. And what I mean by that is and actually I'm going to use a different term. I'm going to call it a knowledge garden. And this is a concept I've been thinking about a lot recently, which is this idea of sort of knowledge gardening or information gardening. It's the idea that you're kind of cultivating something and sharing in public, and it's somewhere between a public blog and sort of a personal notes page. So this page, for example, is public, and I'm going to share the link with you shortly. And it's something that it's sort of learning in progress for me. I'm figuring these things out and I'm sharing them with you. You can do the same on any topic. It doesn't have to be public, right? You can have a private garden. Some of my pages are totally private, but that's one use of Notion. It's just to kind of collect your information, whatever it is about a topic. I've been thinking a lot about online teaching these days because that's my job is director of teaching and learning. I'm training people, trying to help people move to online teaching. So I'm collecting information on various pages for myself about that. Then I can sometimes share some of that material, but some of it is just for my learning in progress. So that's one use case. And feel free to chime in here with other use cases so that I can add them to this list. And I'll show you various stylings along the way. So we're doing two things at once. I'm going to show you another styling, which is sometimes useful. It's called a call out. So this is another way to kind of like make something stand out in a different way. So I'm going to actually use this as an annotation of the Knowledge Garden idea. So I'm going to say, you know, a Knowledge Garden, you know, can be public or private. It's sort of like an annotation on the idea. And again, I can add a color to that if I want to. I can change the text so that the text itself is red or something like that. I'm going to undo that, Command Z. I'm going to do instead change the background. I tend to prefer to use sort of background. Oops. I'm going to try to change the background color here. Doesn't like that for some reason. So another way is you can always select text and you can adjust it here. And there's different options you have. You can duplicate the text. You can turn the text into something else. You can actually copy a link to the text. So if you want to create a sort of anchor link or link to something else within a Notion page, you can do that. Oh, interesting. So it doesn't like to put a call out into, that's interesting, into a different color. So that's another thing where I'm sort of discovering interesting limitations. I've sent them a couple of notes, for example, about the size of the toggles. We'll get to that a little bit later. So other things about the text here, I can also use Markdown. So if I want a second level heading, I can press 2 number signs and then space, and now it's a heading 2. So that's another way to do it. Or if I do 3, that's going to be heading 3. If I do 4, that's nothing. If I do 1, you can probably guess it's heading 1, right? So there's a few different kinds of things. And by the way, all of that is in this keyboard shortcuts document. So if you look at this Notion keyboard shortcuts, there's tons of keyboard shortcuts. Some people sometimes wonder, like, why is there such a focus on keyboard shortcuts? Like, I'm happy to use the mouse. I know people who say that. And that totally, you know, it's totally fine. Everyone works in their own way. But what I find is that when you work a lot in some sort of tool, the number of seconds you save each time you actually use a keyboard shortcut adds up to working much more efficiently. You can end up, once you're familiar with the keyboard shortcuts, you end up really saving a lot of time in aggregate. It's sometimes hard to get a sense of that until you really have sort of mastered them, and then it really starts to save you time.
Hey, Jeremy, can I
please jump in. Yeah.
Interrupt with a question.
Yeah.
The thing you said earlier about pages being developed for personal use, thinking versus sharing versus more public, intrigues me, because that's partly what I'm trying to get my head around with Notion. When you're thinking about that at the front end of building a page, does it change the way you approach how to set up a Notion page or Notion site, whether thinking of the end at the beginning, or can you sort of adapt pretty easily once you sort of see how it evolves? How do you think about that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So you can definitely adapt. In fact, you know, one thing I did along the way in sort of prepping for this, I was creating a table. I'll show you the table down here. By the way, there's a great Notion playlist. My internet might be a little slow. It's not showing here, but there's a YouTube playlist if you want to go through their official videos. They're really good later on. But I created a little gallery, and I initially, and this is a table, so I'm jumping ahead here to when we've talked about text and styling text. I think you get the gist of that. This text styling is pretty similar to, you know, any kind of document tool. By the way, you can obviously do, you know, bold and ital and all that stuff. You can also add a comment to anything. So, you know, knowledge gardens are a hot topic among productivity YouTubers, for example. So I can add a message, and I can message somebody if there's one of you was in here, and you now see there's a little discussion there. So there's some other things you can do with text to add interactivity. But I think we've gotten a general idea. You can obviously link text. What else can you do here? Yeah, you can color it. We looked at that, and you can turn it into something else. So that's the gist of the text part. So let's move on to tables. And what I initially was thinking of is just creating sections within this page. So a section on creating text in Notion, a section on creating tables, a section on some other embeds, etc. And then I realized that I might as well use the table view, because tables in Notion are what really most separate it from other traditional document tools. Like what I've shown you thus far up here, I mean, that's basically just Google Docs, right? Like you can do that with Google Docs. You can create different levels of headings, and you can color the text and stuff like that, right? But what you can't do in Google Docs, which really makes Notion and Coda and other tools different, is you can't easily create multiple view tables. You can create a table in Google Docs, for example, which is just like a series of boxes, right? Like cells. But with Notion, you can now create a gallery view or a table view or a board view, right? Which is like a Kanban board if you're familiar with Trello, and or a list view, which is just a simple list, right? Or even a calendar view if these things had dates in them. So now what that means is you put information in once, and now you can look at it, manipulate it, use it in so many different ways. And that really makes the information more engaging, more interactive, more compelling, more useful. So for example here, right, I've now essentially created 6 pages, and I just did this right before we started, it took a few minutes. And I've essentially created 6 pages, each of which is about a different subtopic, right? And if you imagine anything you're working on, you know, for example, teaching, there's the opening of class, there's the closing of a class, there's engaging activities in the middle of a class, there's, you know, managing a discussion. So I could create these individual pages on each of these topics, but rather than having like 4 different Google Docs or 7 different Google Docs in 7 different places, which is what often happens to many of us, we create one page, like a Notion page, right? And then within that, we've got you know, different elements. In this case, a table, and each of these elements, each of these things is its own page. So each thing within the table is actually its own page, right? And I can even open this as a page. Now, and we've done this, so I won't go through this too much. Oh, I didn't talk about the other kinds of lists. So maybe I'll say a word about that. So now we're on a page, right? But this is a page within that other page, but it's also its own standalone thing. So I can dig deeper into just text, right? And one thing I want to show you is a couple other kinds of lists. So you can create bulleted lists. That's, you know, to be expected. But the thing I really like, and this is where I think a very powerful feature that doesn't get enough attention, is the toggle. So now anything I tuck in here essentially is a hidden section, right? And it's hidden not in the sense that it's hiding, you know, not that it's private or anything, just that it's cleaner. So now I can put in anything, right? Like, actually, let me show you this. Let me put in an image, because we didn't look at that yet. So I can put in an image. This again moves beyond Google Docs, right? I can take a link to an image. If I have a link to an image, I can upload an image. I can create an image from Unsplash, which is a free repository for images. So I can put in really anything I want here. And I'm just going to put in one relatively at random. Actually, let me just show an example of how you'd use the search. So I want something to do with text, because we're on a text page, right? That's how I found this. So I'm going to find another nice thing of text here, and we'll go with this one. And so because I'm putting that within the toggle, it's going to take a second to load here. Because it's within the toggle, I can now just hide it. So basically, I could have a bunch of different things in here and have a really neatly ordered document without having, you know, if this were a meeting with 4 agenda points, I could have each section neatly organized on one small page. And then I can put in more within that. I can put into toggle within the toggle. One thing I'll show you about images that I kind of like is, you see this handle? I can actually drag this. So let's say I don't want a large version of it. I can make it smaller or larger without having to deal with any kind of like HTML code or anything like that. And I can also, you know, perform some actions on it, comment on it, whatever. The other thing I can put into any section or any page is an embed. So I'm actually going to put in a YouTube embed, and I'm going to go up here. I have a clipboard manager, right? So I can have easy access to all the things that I have copied and pasted. That's a huge, huge resource that's underappreciated, right? If you copy and paste one thing at a time, you can't find the things you've used earlier today, right? I used this YouTube link earlier, so now I can just grab it from my clipboard manager. So I'm just putting in the YouTube link. I'm not using the embed code. I'm just putting in the YouTube link. And it's immediately going to recognize that it's a YouTube video and it's going to put it on the page. So to me, that's a huge thing, because now instead of a Google Doc linking off to an image and opening up another page, I can simply embed the image in the page, embed the video in the page. So now I can present something and show the videos, show maps, show really whatever I want, tweets, social posts of any kind, other kinds of things, even embeds from other services like Miro if you're creating whiteboards or stuff. Let me just pause and see, there's some questions. Can you hide the annotation if you want? Do you mean, Venkatesh, do you mean the comment, or do you mean the—
No, that was specific to
the call out
you were doing. It's okay. I got it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
by the way,
you don't have to answer that.
Okay. One thing in the interface you'll see is that I have the sidebar closed just because I want to focus on the page. In fact, let me even make the page a bit bigger, just so it's a little easier maybe to see. But I can also open up this sidebar, and this sidebar has all of my prior pages in sections: the favorite section, ones that have been shared, ones that are private. So you can use Notion privately without sharing anything, just as you would use Google Docs. You can use it with a team. You can use it to make public documents. You have a lot of flexibility. And just so you know how that works, let me actually share this page with you. So as many of you know, I'm a huge fan of sharing stuff publicly, posting bit.ly links, and this is the process. So I'm gonna go to the share menu, and I'm gonna go publish and share to the web. Now, if you just want to invite a small group of people, a colleague, you can just go add people, right? And I could add people I've already worked with, or add new people with their email. And I can say that they have full access, which means they can edit and share it. I can give them edit access, but not allow them to share it. I can add them with just comment access, right? Sometimes you want colleagues to just comment, but not to change the document, or you can just make it viewable. So in this case, I'm not going to add people by name because I just want to make it simpler for you all to access this. So I'm going to go share to the web. And now again, I can allow public editing. So for today's purposes, I'm going to actually make it open. So I'm going to ask you to add material if you want to. Obviously, no obligation. You can also add comments. I'm going to turn that off at some point because I don't want necessarily it to be open for anyone to, write anything they want. I can allow search engine indexing if I want, if I'm making a page that, I'm trying to get, if this is going to be my website or my portfolio or something, which people are now starting to use Notion for, I can do that. In this case, I don't need to do that. And what else? Now I can copy the link. So, and I'm going to copy that link. And now what I'm going to do is, and those of you who have seen, worked with me in the past, you'll know that I usually use Bitly. I'm going to use Yelkey today because I want to give you a quick link that you can use for the next 24 hours. And what Yelkey does is just create a simple link that you can yell. That's why it's called Yelkey. There used to be one called Shoutkey. It disappeared, and now it's Yelkey. So the link is yelkey.com/quickly. So if you type that in, and I'll paste that into the chat as well, in case that's easier. And if you use that Yelkey, you will see that you can access this page now as well. Open, I need to put for, I think for Zoom now, I need to put the HTTP so you can actually click the link as opposed to copying and pasting it. There we go. So Jack asked about the clipboard manager being a part of Notion. No, it's actually not. Sorry, sometimes I mix multiple things together, and I apologize for that. The clipboard manager is just one called Clipboard History. It's a little plugin for your computer. There's a variety of different clipboard managers. Clipboard History is one. Copied, COPIED, is another one. And a third one that I often use is called Alfred. And let me see if I can show you that. Pulling it onto that monitor. I don't know if you see that because it's layered on top of the screen. Do you see that? Can you see that clipboard manager? Do you see that? I don't know if you can see it because it's layered on top. So I just activated, and Alfred basically will show me everything on my clipboard as well. So there's a few different clipboard managers, just to answer that question. How much free storage does Notion provide? Somebody asked. I don't remember the number. I've never run into any issue. Most of the time, I'm not uploading direct audio or video or image. Well, I do upload images, but they take up very, very little space. You could upload many, many thousands of images and never come close to reaching the storage space. The only issue would be if you upload original video a lot, but I would never do that with Notion. I would just upload it to YouTube or Vimeo and make it unlisted if you don't want it to be public, and then embed it because YouTube is a much better as a video host. What I have done, and maybe I can show you this when we get to the examples, I have created an audio journal page and I've uploaded audio directly to the page for family. This is a personal use case. We created a family pandemic kind of family audio journal, and I did upload audio directly to it. And that's another standout feature for me of Notion. Unlike Google Docs or even unlike Coda, which is another great tool, with Notion, you can upload the material directly. So let me actually just show you that. Oh, one other thing I'll do, just since we're on this link thing before I get off the topic entirely, is I will also I will also create a bit.ly link because the Yell key link will only last for 24 hours. So this is a Notion Basics page, and you can see bit.ly gives me a default, 30Z blah, 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 but I'm going to create a simpler one, Notion Basics. Let's see if that's available. bit.ly/Notion Basics is available. So now I've created a simple bit.ly link. I'm copying it. I'll put it in the Zoom chat. And that's something you could come back to if you want to. That's the same thing as the Yell key, right? Those are just going to take you to the same place. I'm just sharing a couple of resources that might be useful for you. And I find the bit.ly really nice because then I can just go to, even myself, even if I'm not sharing with someone else, I'll just remember, okay, I'll bit.ly/Notion Basics to open that page from wherever I am in the future, or to share with people in the future. So if you ever want to go back to this Notion Basics page, you can just go bit.ly/Notion Basics. Now I'm going to go back to this page. Now I lost my train of thought a little bit. What was I about to do? Let me make sure I've answered any questions, by the way. What is my take on Airtable versus Notion is another question. So Airtable is really great for tables, but it only does tables. So it's really, you can't really create just a text page or mix text and page. There are a couple of now plugins for Airtable where you can sort of create something on the side that you can put some text into, but it's really basically only for tables. Now, having said that, I use it. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Venkatesh.
Sorry. I mean, what I meant was, can you use Notion for everything that you already use Airtable for?
Oh, I see. Yes.
Can I junk Airtable?
Yes, basically, except that, and I still use Airtable. I'll show you an example of something that I do with, let me see if I can remember the link quickly. Yeah. So bit.ly/podcast faves, right? That's a table that I created. I'll share it here in the chat as well. That's a table I created in Airtable for podcast favorites. Now, the thing I like about it is basically just the look of it. So actually, I didn't load the page today. So here's the look of that. And, what I like is the images, the way the images show nice and large, the way that people can sort and filter, and the way that I can also add with the web clipper. So I've set up a web clipper for Airtable. I'll show you how that works. I just click the Airtable button here, and then it gives me access to any different number of clippers. So this would be my, not a YouTube clipper, where is it? Podcast clipper. And normally if I'm on a page with podcasts, it'll pick the link, it'll pick the image, it'll have the, so basically it's a faster way to create a table based on the web clipper. And I like the way it looks. But could you do that with Notion? Yeah, basically you could. It just would look a little different. So that would be my take. So yeah, Notion is a more robust tool, but Airtable does what it does really, really nicely. Okay, any other questions that I haven't answered? Now, what was I about to do? So one thing I can do, by the way, is post in this bit.ly link, right, for future reference. So, oops, that's the wrong one. I'm going to post in the Notion Basics one, and I don't need the HTTP in here. And obviously that's a bit hard to read when it's really small. So I'm going to change that to a probably heading 2, and I'll just call it, what should I call it? Permalink. Right. So for anyone who wants to get back to this, that's how they can get back to. okay, where were we? So, oh, by the way, so you now have access to this page. So if you want to type in anything just to practice it, feel free. So if somebody typed in this quote already, you can totally feel free to play around with this. Let me show you a little bit of the table view because we were talking about that. And then, oops, I noticed this is spelled wrong, right? So I want to correct that. So I'm just going to go in here and correct that. So this shows you the different kinds of views you can create out of the table. Let me just show you the ones I've already created. So this is the gallery. You can see it with nice images. And those images, by the way, are just pulled from Unsplash. This is what I actually started with. This is a basic table view. And I'll create a simple table from scratch. We can do it together just to show you how that works. And each item in the table has its own page automatically. The page is going to be blank, right? It's just going to be the title of what you put in the name field or whatever field, but you can then add to that page. So the table view is good for getting a just general overview. There's different kinds of properties you can add. So this is just a text field. This is just a text field. This is a select field, right, where I can sort of select easy, medium, hard, whatever. Another type of field that I often will use is a checkbox field. And here's an example of how I'm using that. So if we go to the table page, so now I can basically say, like, which of these things have we talked about, right? And we've talked about creating basic text, right? So that's done. Now it's going to disappear. And the reason it disappears, this might be more complicated than you're ready for or not, I don't know, is because I've set up a filter, right? And the filter has one rule. And the filter basically says where the done checkbox is actually empty, then show it, right? If I change that, look, now I'm going to say, where the done field is done, where in other words, where something has been checked, show that, right? So I'm going to change it. Now look what happened. Now it's just showing the ones we've actually done. So that's how the filter works. And I can, change it back and forth or change it to a different filter. Let's say, okay, let me remove that filter. And let's say I want to only filter where the level is easy, because I want to focus on easy things for today, right? So now I can just filter for the things that are easy, right? There's much more advanced, filtering and sorting you can do, but that's just to give you a sense for how easy it is to use. You don't need to use any formulas or anything like that. I find the tables much easier to use than in other services, even Coda, which has very powerful tables. You can also adjust the properties, meaning, let's say I don't want to show the done box, right? It's kind of weird to have like this over here. Maybe I decide I don't want that if I'm not focusing on that. So I just take that away. So I'm showing only which properties I want to show. Maybe I don't need to show the easy thing here because we're only talking about easy things, so I can turn that off too. So you can easily kind of adjust, and now I can change the size of this as well. But maybe I want to view it in a more elegant way, right? Like I want to view it in the gallery way, so I can add the gallery here. And it reminds you what this is going to look like. And I can give it a name. So let's say this is with image view, whatever. I can call it whatever I want. And now you'll notice these have kind of, they're showing different things on them. In this case, they're showing page content. So if I go up here under properties, I can have these gallery showing what's on the page cover, right, which is the image, or the page content. So if you have like lists or content on your pages, you can actually show that in the gallery view just to get a preview of what's on each page. Or if the image is more useful, in this case, the image is more useful at the moment, you can change it to small. So that's actually fits better because there's 6 items. That's why I chose 2 rows, but you can also make them nice and large. So there's a lot of different ways you can view things. You can fit the image if they're too large. What I like about this is that it's enough that I can adjust it, but it's not like overwhelming me with coding or complexity. And once you're used to these different options, you can really work comfortably with them, I find. And they look pretty nice. Now, one thing you'll notice is all it says here on these cards is the title. It doesn't say the characteristics. So maybe I want to add that back in. So what I can do now is say, add in the why. Because now look at them. Now, okay, now we know why we want to put pages together, why we want to create linked databases, right? And let's say the order is not to my liking. In fact, I want to move linked databases down here because that's something we're not going to do right now today. I can just drag it to the end. So I'm essentially doing a manual sort. You can also do an automatic sort. If I go here, sort, I can say, sort by name alphabetically, sort by level, whatever, right? I can do whatever sort I want. But again, very simple and not super taxing or complicated. Yeah, I can add other properties if I want to. So if I want to put this on a calendar and say I want to do this week, something else next week, I can put calendar dates in here. I can @mention people if I want to. I can count and sort and do other kinds of fancy stuff like calculating, how many of each thing there are, how many unique values there are, right? So there are 3 different kinds of levels, right? So let's say you're doing different kinds of, students in different countries, and you're putting the country the students are from. I could say how many countries are represented, right? And I could do count unique values, and it will just do that on the table for me. Or count how many are empty or how many aren't empty. If I have filled in something for students who have showed up, I fill in something and then I say how many are empty. So you can do little things like that within tables as well. Let me pause here, and we're going to get to some examples for inspiration in a moment. Let me just pause for questions or comments. Somebody asked about strengths, weaknesses, and best uses. So let me get to that in a second. Let me just read the other question. Could you explain to us main uses for each of these tools? Coda, Notion, Airtable, Evernote, Docs. I'm very confused right now which tools to use to organize work. Okay, that's a great question, really important one. I think about that a lot. So let me do that one, and then I'll get to the question about strengths, maybe along the way as well. So here's how I think about it. I think of this tool thing as, like your toolkit in your home apartment or wherever you live. You have a box with tools in it, right? Pretty much most of us probably have that. I don't do many home repairs myself. I'm pretty clumsy, but if I were to, I would use the toolbox, and I might have a hammer in it, but I wouldn't just have a hammer, right? I'd have a screwdriver, I'd have a pliers. I don't know what else goes in the toolkit. You can see how rarely I do home repairs. So my point is, you have multiple things, and you use each of the things for the thing that they're good at. So what are they good at? So as I mentioned earlier, Airtable is good at displaying kind of structured data only. It doesn't have really text entry. It doesn't have, ways to embed. You can embed sort of on the side a YouTube video that's in a table, but it's not really meant for that. So Airtable is good for tables, and it's good for web clipping. And web clipping means grabbing information in a structured way and putting it directly in a table. So with Notion has a nice web clipper, but it basically just puts a link in and the title of the page. It doesn't have a really sophisticated way to add a lot of information instantly. So Airtable is good for that. I'll give you 2 examples of how I use it. Well, I use it for YouTube videos. So when I'm creating a table of YouTube videos, it'll pull the title of the video, the length of the video image itself, the description automatically. So I can quickly build a table with a bunch of YouTube videos in Airtable, which is no other tool does that as quickly. I have one about games. bit.ly/games for boards is my collection of favorite board games. We play a lot of board games during the pandemic. So I built that with Airtable because it can pull all the game information really quickly from the game website. So that's Airtable. And it's expensive. I still pay $12 a month, which is half of the full price. It should be $24 or $20, I think it should be. So it's expensive. So that's Airtable. And I wrote a post about it if you want to read more about it in the Wonder Tools archive. In terms of Coda is really flexible. It's changing and improving constantly. It's a lot like Notion in many ways. The pages are structured a little bit differently, and I can show you an example quickly. So I'm going to go to coda.io, which is the home page, and I'm just going to pull up a page just to show you an example. It's in many ways has a lot of overlap with Notion. I find the usability of Notion a little bit better. It's a little bit cleaner looking. Coda is intended to be a little more powerful with sort of linking to different tools and services. So for example, you can pull in stuff from your Google Calendar and from Zoom. You can kind of connect it with these packs to other services. So it's very powerful in that way. What's an example? here's a doc, Cool Tools 2020 doc I used for a presentation at one point. And you'll see you can sort of have tabs with different pages on it in Coda, which I really like. And you can also do the toggle thing on Coda. So here are the pages. You can see different pages in Coda, which I really like. And you can have pages for different things that are sort of within the doc and easy to access. The other winning thing about Coda is the way that it actually looks on mobile. So actually, I think there's a short link in this page. If you want to, you can pull it up. What is it? bit.ly/ it'll come up in a second on the screen, and you can pull it up on your phone, and that is an amazing thing. It looks like an app. So anytime you create a Coda page, let me go to the home page. You can see what I mean, hopefully. Yeah, bit.ly/ Cool Tools 2020. So if you pull that up on your phone, you can even take you can pull out your camera and actually just point it at the QR code here, if you'd like, and your camera will automatically recognize the QR code link, where you can type in the bit.ly link. If you do that on your phone, if you have your phone with you, you'll see the Coda pages actually look like an app. And actually, I'll do it while we're talking as well, so that you can see what I'm talking about, in case you don't have your phone with you or you just want to see it online. And I'll show it on the screen. So that's really unique. The Notion app itself works fine, but in terms of when you publish a Notion page, it doesn't look as nice as when you publish a Coda page. And in my opinion, it's just a matter of opinion. So, and it depends partly what you have on the page. In this case, I have a lot of tabs. Oh, I have to turn off my virtual screen so you can see my phone. Okay, so this actually isn't even the best example because the way I structured the tabs, but you see the tabs at the bottom. I don't know if you can see that, if it's adjusting. Yeah, it might be hard to see on screen. But then basically the tabs, each different page is given sort of a tab in the browser. So it actually looks, I find it looks a little bit nicer than Notion pages on mobile. What were the other ones you asked about? Google Docs just doesn't have interactivity. You can't embed anything. Material can't be toggled within a page. So those are some of the limitations of Google Docs. But I still do use Google Docs all the time. I love the voice input. That's something unique with Google Docs. I can just type with my voice, so that's super useful. With Google Docs, let me get back to the Notion page. And yeah, anyway, so that's I'll leave it there. Evernote I find not as useful anymore. It's unstructured in any way. I use Roam instead of Evernote. That's a longer story to talk about that. Basically, the gist there is that in Evernote, everything has to be in basically one box. I mean, you can tag things to put them in multiple places, but it's not really made for that. Roam is a backlinking, kind of much more interrelated material. Maybe I'll do another session on that because that's a whole other beast. But yeah, I'm basically using Evernote less and less. Yeah, so I think each person it's very personal in terms of what you use for what. I don't think you need to use all of them, would be one piece of advice. I would pick one that feels comfortable for you and get to know that. I think you can use Notion for most of the things that you can use any of these other tools for. So if you're going to pick one, I think Notion's a good choice. There's a huge culture of Notion now, from Reddit Notion page to all kinds of people on Notion talking about all kinds of use cases. There's a template gallery, which I'll show you right now since we're getting onward in time. And I'll paste a link in the chat so you can look at that. And it's actually, I'll put it on the Notion page as well that we're working on. So actually, let me just drop it on this page. And actually, I'll show you something while we do that. So so let's create a little section here. I created a section for links. Let me make that bigger. And these are my posts. Let's put this post here. And now you'll see that I can link to page. And I'm going to link to the Notion template gallery right there. So it shows up as a nice link. And now it's on our shared page for this session. And when you go through this, you'll see there's all kinds of great templates. And the thing about templates is you don't have to start from scratch. I was showing you how to start from scratch because, that way you get to know all the ins and outs of the tool. But you don't have to do that. You can start with someone's built page for something along the lines of what you're going to do. And that's a great way to get started. And then you can modify it in whatever way you want. So, Google Docs has a few templates. but very limited. And so there's now tons and tons of Notion templates, and there are many that are outside of this official gallery as well. You can search for anything. This is one that's a nice example of a simple wiki, and they call it a life wiki, but it really could be anything, right? It could be a wiki for your different topics on any subject. And what it is essentially, and by the way, to copy this, you just open it up and then you click duplicate up here on the top right. So I'll do that, I'll duplicate it, and now it's duplicating it to my Notion account, right? And so now I can customize it. And basically what it's saying is like, you're creating all these subpages in whatever way you want. And so this can be just my collection, right, of whatever. Or my start page, or whatever I want it to be, right? And by the way, I can change these things, these little icons. I can go random and change it to something else that I like. There's some pretty weird ones. That's fine. And I can also change this really easily. So I'm going to change cover. I'm just going to pick a random one that they have here just for time's sake. Actually, this one's kind of cool. So, so I can also upload my own thing. So let me actually show you what I do for that. If you're interested, are you interested in seeing Canva for a second? I'm going to show you how I create graphics. So these are my designs in Canva. So I created one basically pulling from this. This is the template. Can you see that still? You can still see my screen, right? Yeah. So this is the template I used, and I just basically pulled in the logo. So Canva now has different plugins, which is really cool, which I didn't know about until very recently, maybe new. And one of them is brand fetch. So this is super cool because now I can pull in any kind of brand name, like website name, pretty much anything I want. I can get the logo and pull it into a graphic. So I pulled notion.so, and I just can grab that and drag it in to any kind of graphic I'm creating. So, and what I do is typically I'll create a main graphic, and you can see I created a Notion mess page for my column because I included a link to that. And now this can be Notion tables. And now I can use this, and I can edit it slightly if I want like a different, I don't know, if I want to adjust the shading of this or something to like make it a little different from the others, I could do that, but yeah, I don't think I'm gonna do that. So now I can just download it. So, and I'm not gonna download all of them, I'm just gonna download the third one. So this is basically how I create, it's a little behind the scenes, like how I just create simple graphics. And I want this to be a little larger just for the quality, and then I'm gonna download it. And all the graphics I have in Canva are on one page. I can just save them in a folder. I have a Canva folder, just so I know where to find stuff later. These are my Canva designs, and this is gonna be a Notion tables banner graphic. And there we go. So I've got now a new graphic, and now I can basically use it on the page. So actually this is not really about tables, but I'll just show it for that purpose anyway. I'm changing the cover, I'm going upload. I'm gonna choose an image. It says images wider than 1500 pixels work best. That's why I made it large. And I'm gonna go to the Canva Designs folder, and it's gonna be right here. What did I do? Where did I put it? Here it is. I don't know why it says no date. It's been a weird thing. If anyone knows why it does that, I'd love to know. So there it is. So there's a graphic. And I knew that I needed a wide graphic, so I searched Canva earlier for a wide banner. Turns out this is actually the SoundCloud banner thing. And I can reposition it slightly. So I can move it. Actually, I can reposition it a lot, but I'm just going to move it slightly. And that's how you can create a nice looking kind of graphic page. You can take this off if you don't want it. And now each of these is a separate page, right? So I can now use this in the way it's designed, or I can just change it entirely, right? Like I can make this whatever I want to make it into, and I can add a cover, I can do whatever I want. So this is a way to kind of have a starting point and this is a, you know, someone's using it as a to-do list. So that's another way to use Notion. And while we're on that, let's just look at some other use cases. Since that's something people are interested in. So simple task list, if you just want to use it to sort of organize stuff you have to do, you can use it nicely with the checkbox function and add images, or create an itinerary. You can add images. You know, there's a lot of stuff you can do with that kind of approach. Here's Thomas Frank's note-taking system. He's a popular kind of YouTuber. And you can see how he does his notes. He has different notebooks in here in Notion. So I encourage you, depending on what your interest is, to kind of explore these and see which one, is sort of relates to you as something you would actually use as a starting point. And if you don't see something here you like, you can actually search. Let's search food, see what we come up with. How good the search is, I haven't tested that. I'll tell you what I do normally is I'll actually just search. Yeah, I don't know, it's not picking up stuff here. So I actually just search Google for Notion templates if I want them. Here's a set of remote work templates, which might be useful for the moment. And these are, again, just some examples. These are more work-related ones, educator-related ones. There's quite a ton of different things. Product manager ones, engineering ones, HR, team tools, personal ones, meal planner, travel planning, blog posts. You can pretty much do, almost anything you can imagine with it. Let me show you a couple of other my other pages as I look at the clock, and then see if there are other questions, and then we'll wrap up. So a few others. So this is one that I didn't create, but it's one I've used, and it's a remote wiki for students and teachers. So you can see they've divided it up into columns, but it's basically just links, collection of links, and then some embedded videos. But I really like how it just provides a lot of information on one page in a nicely organized way. And they've embedded a couple of tweets, so you can see that example as well. And then links. So when you put in a link into a Notion page, it doesn't just show up as text. You can actually have it look like a little bookmark, and it'll pull in the preview of what the text title is. Here's the Pandemic Family Journal, just a brief snippet of it, just so you have a sense of what I'm talking about, how we used it, which has audio and some images. Family, this is a personal use case, not a professional one, obviously. So let's see. So this is like us playing around. There's audio here. I just embedded some audio. Let's see if you can hear.
I picked vegetables from Saba's garden.
So this is my 5-year-old.
What kind of vegetables did you pick?
We're just
I picked broccoli and scallions are two of them, but I forgot what I keep forgetting what the other one we picked was.
Were they radishes?
Yes, probably. Watermelon radishes, I think.
So anyway, so I by the way, I put the audio into Otter, and then it gave me a little transcript, which I don't really need, but I was just experimenting. Here's another example. This is actually a professional one. So this is an outline for a course that I was developing for our faculty. Here's what it actually, here's a task force page. I'm not going to show all of this, but it's just to give you a sense. This is our task force kind of overview and different comments from different people in toggles. What's another example? Here's a faculty training outline. So this is something that I was working on to train our faculty. There's an overview of what it looks like, different sections of the course. There's different toggle areas that have stuff within them. Yeah, so these are different examples of kinds of ways that I've used it. And I like creating graphics just because it gives the page a professional feel, but you can, do it as simply as just putting in text. Questions? So let me drop back out to the main page that we created, and it's at the bottom of my list here. Oh, here's one more example. This is something I use for a volunteer class that I lead on music appreciation. And I give people a digital handout. It has a YouTube playlist as well, so they can listen to the music. And there's different performances of the music, and then there's some history, background. I could do this with a Google Doc, certainly, but I wouldn't be able to embed the videos. And you can see I'm embedding images, and I like the way the text shows up nice and large. It's just a nice sort of digital handout resource for me to use, and organizes my own information. Okay, so let me pull out. So those are hopefully some examples, hopefully some inspiration for you to use it. And I'm gonna plan to keep adding to this page just as for myself and as a public resource. And if you have other questions later on, feel free to ping me. Jeremy @JeremyKaplan is my email, or @JeremyKaplan on Twitter. Let me just see if there are other questions before we wrap up. looking for a space I can refer students to as sort of drafting, trying out for web-based publishing. Yes, this is great. Notion's great for creating simple web pages. You don't need to send students to, Wix or Weebly or any of those tools, which I don't think are designed that well. Personal opinion here. They're fine for web pages, but this is actually like a full productivity tool, and you can then publish from it. So why not do that? I mean, you can do that with Google Docs as well. But this now you can embed images, pictures, tweets, videos, pretty much anything in there, plus tables, plus text. So yes, MJ Robinson, I would definitely encourage you to use that to create Medium-like posts. Absolutely. They could also use Medium, but I think Notion is a great way to do that. The transcript does not happen in Notion. I just pasted the transcript from Otter. Otter.ai does the transcript free. I think it's 600 minutes a month for free, which is great. I love it. In fact, I wrote the first Wonder Tools post I wrote was about Otter because I really love that. And they're good quality. And I just took it from Otter and pasted it in here. LMS JSchool is using, unfortunately, we're just using Blackboard at the moment. But hopefully we'll move to another one at some point in the future. I personally like Pathwrite. And there's another one called EduFlow, which is new from Europe, which I highly recommend if you're exploring. Let's see. How likely is it Notion will fail? Notion got $50 million in funding recently, valued at, I think, a couple billion. I forget. I put it in the first column, I think. So it's not going to fail. It's got a small team. They're not wasting money. They're not burning money. They're not going to fail because they have a ton of money and they have a ton of users and they're growing fast. Now, having said that, you can export stuff out of Notion, and I encourage you to back everything up always, because you never know. And I have used a bunch of services over the years that have failed. In fact, I created a Twitter list about all the ones that I used to use that have since failed. So it's a good question, but I'm pretty confident in Notion given its growth trajectory. Let's see. +1 for Roam session. Yeah, I'd love to do that. I really love Roam, and it's a little bit more of a subtle tool. Scrivener is interesting. Somebody mentioned Scrivener. I think Notion's more robust. It's more flexible. You can use it in different ways than Scrivener. I do think Scrivener, which organizes your ideas for an outline for a book or a project, I do think that's a nice tool. I like it. But it's much more limited. It's does a few things and it doesn't do as much as Notion does. And it's a subscription as far as I remember, whereas Notion you can use for free and get most of the features. What else didn't we get to? I think we got to a lot of the features. Let me just pull up this menu again, just so you can get a look at that. So the slash menu is the heart of Notion, and it really lets you see all the different things you can put in. So you can put in a subpage, like one of the pages you've already created in the past, obviously just text, to-do list, headings, bullets, toggle list. We've looked at all of these pretty much. You can link to a page, you can do a call out. We looked at that. You can do a page divider. You can mention people if you're doing this with a colleague so that they know that you're talking, you want their help on something. You can put a table in line, and the various different kinds of tables like the gallery or the calendar view, those are all here as well. But you can also just put in a table and then just add a view to the table. So those are the main things. But then here under media, you can add an image, which we did. You can add a bookmark, which we did. It's just basically pasting in a link. You can add a video. You can add audio. And that can be, by the way, from SoundCloud or Spotify, as well as your own audio. So you could put your Spotify stuff in here. That's kind of cool. You can upload a file directly. Actually, a PDF is something really unique. For some reason, almost no other tool you can embed a PDF into the page. You can't embed a PDF in Google Docs. You can't embed a PDF in Coda. There's a workaround, right? You can put in a PDF into Issue or whatever the other PDF hosts are, but then it's like a 3-step process and it's hosted somewhere else. Here you can just put it directly. You can embed all these other things, Google Maps, things from Whimsical, which is like a design tool, Miro, embed a PDF. You can embed a recording from Loom. So if you're doing a screencast, which is great. You can embed a form. I use Typeform a lot. It's great to embed forms. You can put a table of contents in. I'll just show you that right now. So let's say at the bottom, I don't know why we'd put it at the bottom, but maybe we would. I'm going to put a table of contents. And you'll see that it automatically picks up the different sections, right? At least the ones that have a heading, a styled heading. So that's a nice little feature, is to put an automatic table of contents. So there's a lot of different stuff, and it's all right here in this menu, and we've basically looked at most of it. So so it's actually really not that hard to use, although there's a lot to it, a lot you can do with it. Yeah, any final questions as we get ready to wrap up? I might have missed a question. You can repeat it if I missed it, or you can just verbalize it. Notion Typeform. Yeah, you can just paste in the Typeform link. It'll show up nicely as a survey within your page. So I'm planning to use this as a handout during my online sessions this fall. And in some of the lesson plans, there'll be videos we're going to watch that are embedded in a Notion page. There'll be a type form for students to fill out during the session. You know, all kinds of stuff you can put on the Notion page. That Notion will be like a great resource for my lesson plans as well as for the digital handout. And yeah, let's wrap up. I am so glad that you spent your time with me. Thank you for sharing your time. I really appreciate that. And I hope you've gotten something useful out of it. Feel free to email me with other questions, or I'd love to see stuff you're working on, or you want to bounce something off me, feel free. I'll paste in my email. I think most of you probably have my email, but if you don't, I'll just put it in here again, jeremy@jeremykaplan.com. If you have any other feedback on this session or on the Wonder Tools newsletter, I'd welcome that. Topics I should address or things I should do better or differently. I would welcome that. It's sort of like I'm living in my little cell here, throwing things out into the world. So it's helpful to have input periodically of whatever kind that might be. Kevin, welcome from Germany. That's exciting. And you're a Notion fan already. So you might have other things that you do with Notion, and hopefully you saw something that was useful for you in this. So with that, yeah, thanks. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Hope you're managing to stay well and happy and healthy. And I wish you and your families well. And enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the rest of this day and enjoy the weekend. See you soon.
Thanks so much, Jeremy.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Jeremy. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.